So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how do you raise capital from banks to do multi-million dollar business acquisitions. Okay, my name is Prithvi and I'm the founder of a healthcare investment company based in UAE. And in the last 2 years, I have met over 100 plus bankers in 26 different banks in UAE. And by the way, that's almost all of the banks in UAE. Within these banks, there are different divisions. There is small to medium-sized enterprises lending. There is commercial lending. There is corporate. Within the corporate, there is mid-corporate and large corporate. And by mid-corporate, the bank means $100 million in revenue. And large corporate is $1 billion plus, all right? And then you've got the investment banking division, which deals with even bigger transactions. And they deal with complex transactions like mergers and acquisitions, etc. All right, so this is the full spectrum of, this is one aspect of the banking, business banking. And then you've got the retail, which most of the people are used to, which deals with credit cards, depository relationships, and that's a whole other side. So most of the people, when it comes to banking, they deal with this, the retail side. But this whole side of business, once again, most of the people are used to dealing with the small to medium-sized enterprises. And by small, it means $1 to $10 million. So all the mooches out there who made $10 million and they are acting like the big boss, for a bank, you come in the small to medium-sized enterprises. All right. So that's the whole spectrum, and I have met the decision makers, the heads of these divisions in 26 banks. And I've met Barclays banks, Citibank, HSBC Bank, which are structured in the UAE. And I have also met some of the big Chinese banks, which are also structured in UAE. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my insights. I'm going to be sharing some aspects of banking when it comes to acquiring multi-million dollar company using debt. Okay, and I did not have a background in finance. I didn't even finish college, and I'm 29 years old. Okay, and I don't come from a rich family. I actually come from a very humble background from India, and I moved to UAE to buy businesses, and I'm trained by Dan Pena, who is my mentor, with whom I attended his Castle seminar and the Hardcore seminar. Okay, and I came to UAE and I started to find $1 million businesses to buy, and then I did all these presentations. So out of these presentations, I did two. I took with the bank two different deals. One was a $3.5 million transaction. It was a cosmetic clinic based in UAE, which had around 30-40% margins. And I took a $10 million home care business, which also had around 30 to 40% profit margin. And I managed to secure two term sheets from one from one of the largest banks in the UAE, and the other one was a smaller bank, to finance up to 50 to 70% of a $10 million transaction. Okay, and it was a huge thing for me to see that I do not have a track record, my company doesn't have a track record, but and I didn't have qualifications, and I'm such a young guy, but yet when I presented them this $10 million deal, they responded favorably and they offered what terms they can offer. And that was something that absolutely blew my mind and changed everything for me. It transformed my perspective. It transformed the perspective of people around me. And it was something that was incredible to see and validate. Okay, you could do something like this. All right. I did not believe I could do something like this, but I was able to do it. So I'm just going to share a little bit of my story, and within that story you will find lessons and how you can get yourself in a position of raising that kind of money, negotiating those kinds of deals, and also having these conversations with the bank. Full disclosure, we did not end up going ahead with that transaction because we found some legal issues with the company and we decided not to pursue that deal. But it was great to find, great to see that the banks are interested, right? So that was amazing to see. And the $3.5 million deal, that did not go through because the bank said we don't deal with these small transactions when it comes to M&A. When it comes to buying businesses, we like bigger deals. If you want to buy a real estate or need some growth capital, we can provide that for 3.5, but really for acquisitions, 10 million would be the minimum. Most banks even said we're not even interested in 10 million. We want 25, 50 million. But there were few banks who were interested in the 10 million, and I managed to secure some term sheets. All right. So when I started out and when I first heard about this concept of raising debt to do business, immediately my whole body would go into a shock. All right, debt, and especially of millions of dollars on me, like how am I going to sleep in night? And I couldn't sleep in the night just thinking about the idea, because as I picked the industry, I refined the business model, I got together the right people from operations, finance, and legal, and I set this whole thing up. I even got law firms and top law firms and accounting firms. It was time to meet the banks, and I was extremely scared and apprehensive about the whole idea of raising capital. But it was something that I was supposed to do to make my dreams a reality. Okay, if you want to create a 9-figure dollar revenue company in a very short period of time, you will need financing. Okay, it's not going to happen just on the back of sales and marketing. Okay, it's not just going to happen at the back of that. You will need some sort of an additional capital. When you go to raise additional capital, you will have two options. Either you can raise it from an investor and give shares in the company, which will reduce the control that you have in your own project, all right? Or you can raise debt, and you got to be very careful with debt. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So when I decided that okay, I want to go with debt financing, and my business model is I want to acquire $1 million healthcare companies, I was extremely scared. Why? Because my mother took a loan of I think $40,000 from friends, families, and banks, and I saw her work day and night to pay that off. And that loan was in her name. She had mortgaged her gold, and she worked day and night, and she was all the time afraid of increasing expenses because she was afraid that she may not be able to pay the loan off, and she did not take that risk. So she worked day and night. She ignored her health, and she would come late at night. She would leave in the morning, 8 o'clock, come back at night, 10 or 11, and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her. And I saw that because of stress, she had lumps in her body. So I had seen some dark sides of finance when done it wrongly. Okay, so I was naturally thinking about her and her scenario and her relationship with debt, and I was thinking to myself, I don't want to put myself in that position. So I didn't take action. I was just completely frozen for a good period of time, and somehow I just kept making the calls even though resistance was kicking in. Everything in me was saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, right? Don't make the call to the banker, don't make the call to the banker. And it was extremely challenging. I even remember one of the banks that we were presenting this $10 million deal to, they loved us. They loved our team, they loved the deal that we presented. This is one of the banks that gave the term sheet. And they invited us to a nice fine dine restaurant. They were paying for it. And they said that we are interested, in doing this deal, and here is the term sheet. And all you got to do is come up with a 30% or 50%, and we will finance the rest, and we would like to continue to partner up with you on future deals. So but while I was doing that meeting, my head was spinning like crazy, because it was around $10 million. It was around $10 million transaction, and it was something so outside my comfort zone. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to literally throw up. I had never been this uncomfortable in my whole life. All right. And it was my past baggage that was kicking in, and what I had seen my mother go through, and the amount was just, like more than 100 times that. And I didn't want to put myself in a position where I spend the rest of my life paying this back. So I was extremely scared, and I'm going to tell you why I was scared, and because I did not understand some things. Okay, first of all, my mother borrowed the money on her name. I was borrowing the money on the name of the company that I am acquiring. There is a big difference between taking a loan personally and exposing yourself personally versus taking a loan through a company, which is limited liability. Meaning, for whatever reason, it should not happen, but for whatever reason you cannot pay the loan back, the bank is just gonna take the control of the company. Kind of like the real estate mortgage. If you cannot make the payments for the house, the bank takes away the house, right? So just like that, in a company acquisition, they just take control over the company, assuming you have not signed a personal guarantee. If you sign a personal guarantee, you are exposing yourself personally. So I did not understand fully these dynamics. It was very new for me, the concept. I did not understand that me and the company are two separate entities. And legally, because I am a legal entity, okay, you have ID cards and passports and things like that. To the government, you are an entity, all right? You are a person. A person is a legal thing, okay? It's not just, it's an existential thing, of course, but to the government, it's something legal. You being a person is a legal issue. All right, same thing with the company. Company has its own existence, and you and the company are separate. So in the case of my mother, she was going to be paying by the work that she does, by giving her own time up. So she would go work, make some sales. From that money that comes in, she has to pay the loan back. And she really has to work really hard and day and night. The longer she works, the more the probability she's going to pay off the loan. In the case that I was in, I wasn't going to be investing a whole bunch of time running the company, because the company is already running and it's already producing the cash flow. There is hundreds of employees in this company are working day and night to produce this revenue and this cash flow that will cover the debt service. So my time is not going to be on the line to pay this back. The company itself, now I need to make sure the operations go well, and I need to put systems in place so that the business runs efficiently, so that we can pay the loan. And also I want to structure the deal right, so that the debt portion of the deal is as little as possible and stretched out as long as possible, so that the payments can be made on time and the loan is repaid, and we finally take control of the company completely, right? So I did not understand that me and the entity are different, and I did not make that distinction that I will not be working, like my mother, doing manual labor to pay this off. So it was a very psychological thing to think that, $10 million business, and it's a $10 million loan, it's a $10 million loan. Look, psychologically, it looks like a big number, but the truth is, if you're taking a $10 million loan, most likely you're going to be buying a business that's worth $15 million, okay? Because the bank is going to give you 50 to 70% of loan to value, right? So if you have an asset that is actually worth 15 million, the bank is going to give you 10. So if you compare the amount of cash flow there is in the business and the amount of debt service, so debt service is this much and the cash flow is this much, then it doesn't matter what size of the transaction is, because no matter what the debt amount, the cash flow is always going to cover it, assuming you make sure the business is intact, and you do that with the expertise that you bring on your team to handle those aspects. I'm not going to get into that in this video. This video is just on the banking aspect of the investment business. All right, so those were some of the mindset blocks that can stop you from making the presentations, and it can happen just due to lack of education and lack of perspective, that it's not me who's borrowing it, it's the company. And as long as I don't have personal guarantee, the company is exposed. I'm not personally exposed. Now, there are reputational concerns when you do a financing like this and it doesn't go right, then yes, you will lose reputation. Again, how many deals have you done, etc., all plays a role in that. But still, you are legally not personally liable. You can renegotiate the loan, and there are many ways to pay it back and have things completed. But you want to make sure before you take the loan, the risks are mitigated. Okay, so let's talk about the bank a little more, just the bank's position. The bank makes money lending money. The bank makes money lending money, and they make money through interest and fees. All right, these are ways the bank makes the money. And the bank, the money that they are lending to you is not their money in most cases. Okay, it's money that comes from the depositors and the central bank. So they are borrowing money from the central bank and paying a lower interest, and they are pushing this money forward at a higher interest, and they're making the difference. They're making money on the difference. All right, so understand that when they have the money, they're paying interest on that. So they have, in order to pay this interest, they have to push this money out and make more interest on top of what they are paying. So they're under a tremendous pressure to allocate this capital, and all the bankers and various divisions of the bank are structured to bring opportunities into the system. They spend tens and hundreds of millions of dollars marketing, and so that their banks are positioned so that good opportunities can come to them, so that their capital can be allocated efficiently and they can get the money back, and along with some interest. So they have various divisions in the bank. They have got risk team, analysis, analysts, the VPs who are exposed with the customers, the sales guys, the relationship managers, healthcare experts, real estate experts, because they want to make sure they reduce their risk. So they want to allocate capital, make interest, reduce their risk. As simple as that. So the conversation when you have with the banks is going to be around risk and reward. Okay, how much interest they're going to make, and in how much time are you going to pay the money back, and how are you going to pay it back. Okay, and they want to talk to you about what can go wrong. They want to talk to you about what can go wrong first, and then they want to secure those scenarios, and then they want to talk about the positive scenario. All right, so it's important to think a little bit negatively at the beginning and cover all the possible negative scenarios and present remedies and solutions to those scenarios, because the bank is not going to feel comfortable lending you money even if you have a good transaction if you have not covered this aspect of risk. Do you know all the risks in that company that exist when you are asking for that loan? Do you know that? Have you analyzed it with your team, with your legal professional who has looked at thousands of deals, with your finance professionals who has looked at thousands of deals, and with your operations person who is operationally has expertise to look at these deals? Have you looked at these deals? Have you assessed all the risks? And have you made sure that in your deal structure with the seller of this business, you have made sure that all of these scenarios are protected one way or the other? Okay. Next thing. So one thing is the risk. The other thing is the cash flow to debt service coverage ratio. So if the payment on the loan is going to be $1 million a year, you have to pay it to the bank. You want the business to be producing $2 million a year in profit. So in 1 year, if your debt payment, which is really an expense of a business, is 1 million, you want your profit and cash flow to be 2 million. So that even after you pay the bank, you have still $1 million of cash flow available. How do you structure a deal so that you have these kinds of ratios? First of all, these types of deals take harder to find. This means you paid a very low purchase price. Only then this is going to happen. You paid a low purchase price and you stretched it over a period of time. Why would someone give you their company for a low valuation, low purchase price? They have to be really motivated to sell you. They have to have some personal issues, right? There was one time I was relocating my house and I gave away all my furniture for free. So it really depends on the motivation of the seller. And there's nothing wrong with the furniture. It was just perfectly fine. I was just relocating, So there are these situations where people may be relocating. They may have health problems. So they may be relocating to hell or heaven, hell or heaven. I mean, you get the point, right? So whatever the reason, whatever the situation, they want to get rid of the business. There's nothing wrong with the business and they are willing to accept a lower valuation, and even with that lower valuation, they are willing to accept a small down payment, and rest they are fine with accepting the payment over time, right? So if my furniture costed $20,000, somebody can come and say, hey, I'll give you $5,000 now and $15,000 I can pay you over time. Instead of giving it all away for free or throwing it away, you can give it to me. I can pay you $20,000, but $5,000 I can pay you now, 5 over time. So this is the type of deal that you would structure with the seller. You agree on a low purchase price and you give as little cash as possible. So this cash comes from the bank and it's stretched over time. So there is a very comfortable window where you can pay, and you will have clearly, you will do an Excel sheet where the cash flow of the business, you will see how it's going to be year on year based on their last 10-year track record. And if a business is producing in the last 10 years $2 million every single year, and you take over and you made sure all those factors are intact, why wouldn't it produce? Especially if it's in a high growth sector that's already growing. The services are established, the employees are working hard, everything is intact, and you've made a good deal with the owner, and you've made sure the owner helps you run the business for some time until you take over completely. I mean, why wouldn't it generate $2 million? So you got to make a strong case for that. You got to make sure you protect the risk. You always want to make sure you use valid audited financials, audited by Big Four, to present to the banks. And you got to make sure that you're transparent and open about what the condition of the business is. Okay, it's extremely important that you do everything legally. Okay, so those scenarios, once you do the risk analysis, once you structure the deal right, and once you see the cash flows in front of you and how the repayment structure looks like, you will feel comfortable with borrowing money, because it's really a responsibility. It's really a responsibility. So you gotta, before getting into an investment, you gotta assess these things. To assess these things, you want these highly experienced experts from accounting, finance, legal, operations, and mergers and acquisitions in general to guide you, to assist you. Even if you don't have experience, you may be young, you may be doing something else in your life, you have never done this before, still, those experts have looked at these deals. You can leverage their experience. So with the banks, and the banks is going to see. So the bank is going to really test you. Do you have the experience and expertise on your team? It doesn't have to be you personally, but your team, right? They're giving the loan to the company. They're not giving it to you. It feels when you're doing the presentation that you are asking for it, but really it's the company that's asking for it. So they're going to look at the whole company in general. Okay, the founder doesn't have the necessary expertise, but does the team have the expertise? Yes. Does he have expertise on his team? Yes. Have they done these deals before? Yes. So, and is the transaction good enough? Yes. Is the cash flow to debt service coverage comfortable? Yes. Have they identified all the risks in the business? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Do they have remedies and solutions? Yes. Okay then. You're good to go. The other thing to remember is that not all banks likes these kinds of structures. There are only certain banks that may be favorable to it. Certain other banks may like real estate more. Certain other banks may like healthcare more. Certain other banks may not like cosmetic, but they like dental within the healthcare. So each bank, based on the experience that they have had with lending in that sector, they take their position. Okay, so don't take it personally if one of the bank doesn't finance. Maybe they had a bad sector in that bad experience in that sector, so they have closed it off for the limited period of time. Once again, when they have a good experience with a company, they can open the lending again. So they keep changing their positions. Maybe the real estate market is not going well, so they focus on healthcare, and they keep pivoting their positions and they keep morphing. So just because a banker said no doesn't mean you cannot reapproach him for another acquisition, and and even the same acquisition again after some time, because their positions may have changed. And sometimes you will find if you just establish the contact and their position changed, sometimes they will reach out to you and they will also propose that, hey, listen, our position has changed. Would you like to speak again? I have had that happen a lot. When I was doing the presentations in COVID time, some banks said, not right now, but we can discuss in a few months. After a few months, we discussed and we were in good rapport and we discussed the deal, right? Some banks, for example, UAE banks, we said that we don't like small deals, we want to do big deals. So some banks may like big deals more than small deals. Some banks may like real estate. Some banks may like cash flow producing assets like healthcare. Some banks may not even like healthcare. And so there are various parameters which are bank specific. It has nothing to do with you. So the really bottom line is you need a lot of banks. You need a lot of banks in the pipeline to be able to do this successfully. You cannot talk to enough bankers, all right, is what I was told. And with that, this is the end of the video. And if you want to reach out to me for a one-on-one mentorship, for me to take you through this whole process and put you in a position of doing multi-million-dollar deals and dealing with the banks, structuring these deals, and really having a phenomenal career, reach out to me. I cannot work with everybody because this is going to be a one-on-one mentorship. I only have so much time available. So if that's you, reach out to me and we will see what can be structured. I'll talk to you soon.